there's a tree, they'll want to climb it. I think it's a very basic impulse.
How did we evolve into the present state that we are now in climbing? How did it begin in a serious way, not with kids, but with folks who were just goddamn determined to get to the top of something big?
Well, don't you think it would be a natural impulse to approach the heights? If you live in a valley, you want to get to the rim. If you live in a meadow, you want to get up. You want to get up high. I think it's a natural impulse to want to get high, so to speak. All right. And if in that sense, in that physical sense, people want to get high.
Okay, but by yourself, with your own hands and feet, unless you totally disregard your own safety, you can only go so far through so many things. Where did the serious climbing begin, and how has it evolved and gotten us to where we are today? I guess that's what I'm trying to do.
Well, I don't know. The friends of mine have been doing research and have discovered that the impulse to climb goes way beyond, much farther than the traditional scene that we think of as being developed in Europe, climbing the Matterhorn and Mont Blanc and some of those peaks in Europe. The Chinese were climbing peaks just as an exercise in their various religions, and it goes back hundreds and hundreds of years. There's evidence that people wanted to get high physically on peaks, on the terrain that they lived in. So the technical stuff probably started 100 or 150 years ago, using ropes and approaching it with equipment and gear and footwear and alpenstocks and all the rest of it, just to negotiate snow slopes and ice fields. But that's not where it really began. I don't think anyone really knows for sure how far back it can be traced, but it's earlier than that.
Where did it begin in this country? Anybody put a finger on that?
Any state, any place that has mountains. I'm sure that history is there of people climbing in them. There's the Rockies or the Sierra. You know about the enclosure up here, which is the second highest peak in the Teton Range. And there's that little circle of stones that has mystified people for a long time. No one knows for sure who built it or when. It might have been the Indians, it might have been French trappers, no one knows for sure. But somebody was up there 100 years ago or earlier and built this thing, circle of stones. It's just a circle of stones. It might be a ceremonial circle, or it might be a joke, or it might be Kilroy was here, but somebody took the trouble, and it's a climb. It's not technical, doesn't take ropes or any specialized equipment, but somebody far earlier than climbers in this range went up there on the enclosure and constructed this circle of rocks on the top of this peak. So I don't know how early it is, how far back it goes.
How has climbing changed since you first started in terms of the technical aspects of it?
Oh, it's changed enormously. This technical gear has become more sophisticated, lighter, stronger, and more versatile. The individual ability of climbers is pretty astounding. That's why I think you're wasting your time here. You should be in Yosemite Valley photographing the superstars at work. They climb much harder things.
Like what?
They climb solo. They climb just climb things on site that I wouldn't dream of climbing under any circumstances. you're dealing with a relic, you know, a museum piece. If you want to update your program, you've got to go. It's not just Yosemite, it's happening all over the country. You can go to any climbing center, Boulder, Shwangunks in the east, and you don't even have to talk to these people. Just point your camera and let it capture what they're doing. And the people who are now world-class climbers are truly Olympic level athletes, which was never the case when I was climbing in the 60s. We didn't train that much. We climbed a lot, but we didn't work out. We didn't eat right. We didn't sleep right.
You drunk right.
We drunk right, yeah. But
well, I guess that's why Peter Lev said yesterday that he calls you the master.
master of what?
Climbing.
So
That's somebody that's. I mean, Peter Lev knows what's happening in the climbing world. And I'd say that's a pretty good compliment
Yeah, he was very.
coming from him.
well, it's all very flattering, but it's like you're doing an interview with Jesse Owens and ignoring all the years since and what's developed and what's happened. So I had a little niche and participated in some significant climbs in the 60s, but so what? You're missing the boat.
Well, you know,
John, I realize you're a fan, all right? And if you're a fan of somebody, then that person is absolutely the best in the world.
Well, hey, we'll talk about that for a second. People who are into climbing come up to you and go crazy.
They're 20 years behind the time. They're just out of step. They don't realize what's going on now.
that's horseshit.
Thank you. Thank you.
No, it's horseshit.
Thank you.
Jim, 2 years ago, whatever, the first time that Chuck and I met at the tower, here are these kids from the University of Wyoming who were probably 18 or 19, and here Chuck and I are roping up, and I'm looking like a dummy that I am, and I said, God, aren't you Chuck Pratt? And but I was going to tell you the story. You know, when who was it? Al Reed's dad used to be the guy that came out and introduced the guides.
Pete Love's dad.
Yeah, Pete Lev's dad.
Oh, Pete Love's?
Mm-hmm.
Well, anyway, he was a very grandfatherly sort of type, and he came out, and the first time I ever saw Chuck, and he said, "This is Chuck Pratt," and he didn't, and he said, and he didn't give any, as I recall, any background.
Sure.
And he said something that is what I have learned, of course.
Do you want a jacket?
What I've learned is, he said, is memorable, is that Chuck Pratt is a man who is known to never waste a single motion. And that was all he said, and it didn't mean, you know, I thought that was nice. But I'd never seen a book with Chuck Pratt. I didn't know anybody in climbing except Bill Briggs, and I knew about Edmund Hillary. But that was it. And if I could make a correction, I'm not a fan. I'm a admirer and respecter.
Okay.
Hope, and I'd be flattered to be called a friend.
Not a fan.
John raises a point. If climbing had been a spectator sport,
Well,